All right, so Dubai desert safaris. They're like the thing to do there, right?
Yeah.
But how do you sort through all the options and find one that's actually amazing, not just a tourist trap? That's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, we've got this whole stack of travel reviews, forum discussions, even some YouTube videos comparing different safari experiences. We're going to break it all down for you.
Awesome.
Uh,
So, where do we even begin with this? Like, what are we hoping to figure out from all this material?
Well, first off, we want to give you a clear picture of what to expect on a Dubai desert safari. What's the landscape actually like? What are the different types of safaris? And are all those must-do activities actually worth it?
Right, because I'm seeing a lot of variety just glancing through these sources.
Hmm.
Some safaris look super intense, others more chill. Some focus on cultural stuff, others seem all about the adrenaline rush.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. There's no one-size-fits-all desert safari experience. So we're going to help you figure out which type is right for you.
Okay, love it. So, first things first, paint me a picture. What's the Dubai desert actually like? I'm picturing, like, Lawrence of Arabia vibes, but maybe that's totally off.
Well, from the descriptions we've seen, you're not far off. People talk about this vast, almost surreal landscape. Like, imagine these endless rolling dunes, this kind of stark, raw beauty.
Yeah, and the contrast with the city is wild. Like in these YouTube videos, you see these futuristic skyscrapers in the background, then bam, you're in this rugged, ancient feeling desert.
It's definitely a unique juxtaposition, and that's part of what makes it so captivating.
Okay, so we've got the setting. What about the different types of safaris? Are we talking morning, evening, overnight? Give me the rundown.
You got it. You've got morning safaris, which are popular for beating the heat and catching that desert sunrise. Then there are evening safaris, which are all about those epic sunset views and maybe some stargazing later on.
Ooh, stargazing in the desert. That sounds magical.
Yeah, and if you want to really immerse yourself, there are even overnight safaris where you camp out under the stars.
Okay, that's hardcore. But I'm also seeing some stuff about Hummer safaris, which sound a bit intense. Like, what's the deal with those?
Yeah, those are definitely for the adrenaline junkies. They basically take dune bashing to the next level, using those powerful Hummers to conquer even bigger dunes.
Okay, so not for the faint of heart or those prone to motion sickness.
Exactly. And speaking of which, if you're not into the whole bumpy, high adrenaline thing, there are definitely gentler options. Some travelers specifically recommended Platinum Heritage for a smoother, more comfortable ride.
Good to know. So there's something for everyone, which is awesome. But we can't talk desert safaris without mentioning dune bashing, right? Like that's got to be a highlight.
Oh, for sure. It's like the main event for a lot of people. They describe it as this exhilarating, almost out of control experience. Like imagine flying up and down these massive dunes, sand whipping past you.
Sounds intense.
It is. Some people compared it to ragging through the desert. Others said it's like being on a roller coaster, but on sand.
Okay, so definitely need a strong stomach for that one. But even for the thrill seekers, I bet there are some insider tips that can make or break the experience.
You're absolutely right. And one thing that kept popping up in the forums was this. Make sure you get a 4x4 pickup directly from your hotel.
Okay, why is that so important?
Apparently, some companies use coaches to transport guests to the desert starting point, which kind of kills the vibe. Like, you want to feel like you're heading straight into the adventure, not stuck on a bus first.
That makes total sense. You want that immersive experience right from the get-go. So, 4x4 pickup check. What else should we keep in mind before we hit the dunes?
It's all about that anticipation, right? Getting you hyped for the desert. Okay, so you're out there, surrounded by dunes. What comes next? The activities, of course.
Yeah, the classic desert safari stuff. Camel rides, sandboarding, quad biking, maybe some falconry thrown in there. But I gotta say, after going through these traveler reviews, my expectations have definitely been adjusted, let's say.
Oh, I hear you. The reality can be quite different from those picture-perfect brochures, huh?
For sure. Like, take camel rides, for instance. Several people mentioned they were way shorter than expected, and some even brought up concerns about how the camels are treated.
Yeah, I saw some photos of those camels just standing around all day, and it made me think twice about the whole thing. It's definitely something to be mindful of when you're choosing a safari.
Definitely. You don't want to support something that's not ethical.
Mm.
Okay, so maybe camel rides are a bit iffy. What about sandboarding? That always looks so fun in the pictures.
Well, according to Reddit, it's more like rolling in the sand than actual boarding. It seems those dunes can be pretty tricky to navigate.
Huh. Not as easy as it looks, huh? Those Instagram influencers make it seem effortless.
Totally. Quad biking, though, that seems to be a winner across the board. People raved about the adrenaline rush of zooming through the desert on those things.
Okay, so quad biking is a yes. Got it.
Hmm.
But I imagine the experience can vary depending on the safari, right?
Absolutely. Some safaris offer rides on pretty flat terrain, while others take you right into the heart of the dunes for a more adventurous experience.
Makes sense. And I bet the price varies too. Speaking of which, those YouTube videos gave me a good idea of what to expect cost-wise. And let's be real, some of those budget safaris looked kinda.
Yeah, you definitely get what you pay for. Which brings us to the big question. Tourist trap or genuine cultural experience?
That's the debate, isn't it? Because the opinions in these Reddit discussions are all over the place.
Totally. Some people were like, best thing I did in Dubai. Dune bashing was epic. The desert was stunning. Had a blast.
Yeah, a lot of positive vibes for sure.
But then you've got others who felt it was overpriced and totally inauthentic. They complained about those cheesy tourist shops at some of the desert camps with overpriced souvenirs and pushy vendors.
Yeah, someone even called it a desert-themed shopping mall.
Yeah.
Not exactly the authentic cultural immersion I'm looking for.
Right. And then there's the food situation. Seems like the quality can be hit or miss.
Yes, some camps got rave reviews for their traditional meals, while others served up those generic buffet-style dinners that left people feeling kind of ripped off. So how do you navigate all this and find a safari that's actually worth it? You're the expert. What's the secret?
Well, based on all this research, the key is to be informed and choose wisely. And that's why I actually recommend booking your safari through Get Your Guide.
To get your guide. Okay. I've heard of it, but why do you think it's the best option for booking a desert safari?
A few reasons. First, they're a reputable platform with tons of tours and activities, not just in Dubai, but all over the world. They've got transparent pricing, which is always a plus. And most importantly, they have real traveler reviews.
So you can see what other people actually experience, good and bad, before you commit to anything. That's huge.
Exactly. And to make things even easier for you, we actually found a specific Get Your Guide tour that we think ticks all the boxes.
Okay, you've got my attention. Tell me more. Which tour are we talking about?
It's called the Dubai Desert Safari, Quad Bike, Camel Ride, and Al-Qaima Camp Experience. It seems to strike a good balance between adventure, cultural stuff, and comfort, based on the reviews.
That's a mouthful, but it does sound pretty comprehensive. So what all is included?
Well, you get all the classics like dune bashing and a 4x4, a quad biking session, and yeah, even a short camel ride. But it also takes you to this desert camp called Al-Qaima, which seems to be a step above those generic tourist traps.
Al-Qaima. I feel like I've heard of that. What makes this camp so special?
It's designed in a traditional Bedouin style, so you get a more authentic feel for the desert culture. They offer henna painting, shisha, even some falcon interactions. Plus, the food gets amazing reviews, like proper barbecue dinners under the stars.
Now you're speaking my language. Good food and cultural experiences, that's what I'm all about. But, those Instagram-worthy photos are a bonus too.
Oh, definitely. And Al-Qaima seems to deliver on that front as well. Those desert sunsets with the camp at the background, they look incredible in pictures. We'll make sure to put the link to this specific Get Your Guide tour in the episode description.
Awesome. Bookmarking that for sure. But even with a well-chosen tour, I'm guessing there's still things you can do to make the most of the experience. Any insider tips from those seasoned desert safari goers?
First off, dress appropriately. Light, loose-fitting clothing, definitely. And don't forget, a hat and sunscreen for that daytime sun. Oh, and here's a little secret weapon for the evenings, a light jacket or a shawl. The desert can get surprisingly chilly after the sun goes down.
Oh, good point. I'm always freezing on planes, so I can only imagine how cold it gets in the desert at night.
Right. And speaking of essentials, hydration is key. Bring plenty of water and keep sipping on it throughout the day, even if you don't feel super thirsty. It's easy to get dehydrated out there in that dry desert air.
Gotta channel my inner camel. Okay, what about souvenirs? Are those desert shops really as overpriced as people say?
Haggling is definitely part of the culture. Remember that Reddit thread about bargaining at the fish market? It's all about a friendly negotiation, finding a price that works for both of you.
I've never been much of a haggler, but I guess there's a first time for everything. Maybe I'll practice my bargaining skills before I go. Any other gems of wisdom from those desert safari veterans?
One thing that really stood out was the advice to read those reviews carefully, not just on Get Your Guide, but across different platforms. Really look for tours that match what you're interested in, whether it's the thrill of the rides, the cultural immersion, or even the chance to see some desert wildlife.
Speaking of wildlife, a few people mentioned spotting oryx and other desert animals. It made me wonder, is there a way to experience the desert beyond those standard tourist activities?
And that's a great question. It seems like there are some specialized tours out there that focus more on the natural beauty and the ecosystem of the Dubai Desert. If you're a nature enthusiast, that might be something worth checking out.
That's a fantastic idea. Always love going off the beaten path. So what's the takeaway for our listeners who are planning their Dubai desert adventure?
A Dubai Desert Safari can be an unforgettable experience, but you gotta do your research and choose wisely. Don't just go for the first cheap tour you find. Think about what you're really looking for and find a tour that matches your interests and comfort levels.
Exactly. Armed with all this knowledge, you could avoid those tourist traps, find a reputable tour operator like the one we recommended on Get Your Guide, and create a desert experience that you'll be talking about for years to come. Who knows, maybe you'll even discover a passion for desert ecology along the way. Happy travels, everyone!